Ange Postecoglou has undoubtedly brought a new level of excitement to Tottenham's style of play, as they now play some of the most attractive football in the Premier League. This statement doesn't come easily for me though, as an Arsenal fan, but the truth is undeniable. The use of inverted wing-backs, positional rotations, taking on players and lethal half-space attacks, all these ingredients have resulted in some impressive attacking displays, and they have been averaging over 2 goals per game. As a matter of fact, they are currently joint third top goal scorers in the Premier League, which is quite impressive for Ange's first season in North London. It's safe to say that Tottenham have bags of potential, but the question is, how far can they really go? Yes, people, and welcome back. Today we are going to be looking at Ange's tactics at Tottenham Hotspur. This was a recommendation from a Patreon user. Don't forget, if you can afford so, check out the Patreon and support the channel. That would be hugely appreciated. So starting from the build-up, Ange's team have been super confident playing out from the back and doing it with some style. From goal kicks, the goalkeeper, Vicario, who's been a good signing actually, looks to be a part of the team's build-up with his short distribution, playing a short pass to either of the central defenders because the fullbacks are not available in the wider areas. No, they invert as Tottenham start to form a sort of 2-3-5 formation to build their attack. The fullbacks inverting also means that Spurs can outnumber the opposition's first line of press. If a defending team chooses to man-to-man press to stop Spurs from building their attack centrally, Tottenham will simply look to then exploit the space now in front of the other team's defensive line. Smart. Spurs inverting their wing-backs is incredibly important to their system and has a few benefits. One, it creates space to pass to a winger who can then go on a 1v1 run. Another benefit being that they contribute to the central and half-space attacks. Lastly, they can also be in a great starting position to stop counter-attacks if Spurs do manage to lose the ball. Though, Tottenham hardly do lose the ball. According to FRF, they have the 4th highest possession percentage in the league with 59.6%. So, the inverted wing backs don't just look good for Spurs, they are important for Ange and always have been. One area teams hate to defend in is the half space, and that is also one area Spurs are good at attacking. They are able to pull defenses apart by making underlapping runs, which is done by wingers making sure they hold their width to attract a fullback. This then allows those central midfielders or inverted wing back to underlap and make runs between the central defender and their fullbacks. When it comes to burying chances, Spurs have been effective from the early crosses as their attackers make some very early runs, starting offside in fact, but as the ball is worked wide, the striker being in front of defenders allows him to attack the ball first, given he watches out for the offside. It's extremely hard to defend against and it has given Tottenham many goals. So to sum up Tottenham in possession, Ange really wants his team to be on the front foot and be proactive, and Spurs have shown their willingness to attack away from home against the top sides. They aren't afraid. A rotation that you are likely to see a lot from Spurs is when players in the half space switches places to pull the defenders away and create more space and confusion. A result of this is then allowing the number 6 some space to do his work. Basuma, another vital piece of Ange's system, he's had a good season, making sure Spurs are progressing with his 1.79 completed take-ons per game, the most for Spurs, by the way. But the game isn't all about attacking. At some stage you will have to defend. Of course, Spurs, when the opposition have built their attack, will look to collapse in a 4-1-4-1 shape, which is pretty easy to do from the 4-3-3, with a high defense line, making sure the shape is compact and difficult to play through. They want you to try and play around the block, but Spurs don't even want it to get to that stage. From the moment the opposition are looking to build their attack from the back, Spurs are highly proactive off the ball and will go pressing in an aggressive manner. Their trap is to get you out wide and then suddenly outnumber you, causing a turnover in possession. But as much as all of this sounds fancy, there are also some weaknesses. Because of the aggressive press and attacking football, Spurs are often caught out on counter-attacks, with the inverted wing-backs leaving space out wide, stretching their central defenders. Whoops. Yeah, that could be a con of using the inverted wing backs. So of course there are many pros and a few cons so far for Ange's Spurs. But that there is the tactical analysis. Now we are going to go into Football Manager and look at the tactic that we have created or recreated. Once again, thank you for the Patreon supporter. He must be a Tottenham fan for recommending this tactic. But I want a vote. What would you like to see soon? Is it Farioli at Nice or the Girona tactic? Let me know in the comment section below. And just before we look at the Football Manager tactic, I promise you just a few seconds. I want you to see this as well. The take-ons that Tottenham are attempting. You can see in the Premier League, they are third when it comes to take-ons. So a player trying to take on a defender, but they also carry the ball a lot as well. Tottenham Hotspur, again, are third when it comes to ball carrying. This is important when looking at the tactic recreation. And we can also see who is responsible for these take-ons: Kulusevski, Heung-min Son, Maddison, Udogie and Bissouma. And earlier I said that Bissouma completes the most take-ons for Tottenham Hotspur at the moment, which is looking at attempted. If we're looking at successful take-ons, it is Kulusevski and Bissouma. And when you do it per 90, of course Bissouma will top Kulusevski when you are looking at per 90, because Kulu has played more games. And also to see who are the main creators in this Tottenham Hotspur. So looking at the shot creating actions, Kulu's at the top of that list. Then we've got Son, then we've got Maddison, Pedro Porro and Udogie. They are the main creative sources for Tottenham Hotspur. Again, this is fairly important when we are now looking at the Football Manager tactic. So let's go. So now here we are in Football Manager, finally, and we are looking at the Ange tactic, which is a 4-3-3 in Football Manager. It was tested 3 times, 2 times at Tottenham Hotspur. So actually I did one where I played all the games, and I've got, again, different variations, different scenarios, which you will have to use. You quite literally have to micromanage. But I also did an holiday test. So I just had basically an effective tactic, holidayed it all the way to the end of the season to see how that would play out. And then lastly, we have an Ipswich test where, again, I did just simulate that using the main tactic from here. But looking at in possession mentality, it is on positive, and the attacking width is set to fairly narrow, so we can try and build up through those central areas and get those inverted wing backs involved in the ball progression. When approaching the attacking third now, we are looking to pass the ball into space, because the wingers and the striker will look to make runs beyond the defensive line. We have got underlap on the left, which will make more sense when you do look at the player roles. Spoiler alert, the left back is on inverted wing back on attack, and the winger on the left hand side is on the winger role. Now the winger cannot hold up the ball. You can't ask him in the instructions to hold up the ball. So I want the underlap on the left hand side, so that player can attempt to now hold up the ball more and allow those underlapping runs for Maddison on the left hand side of the midfield, central midfield, and then Udogie as well as the inverted wing back. We are also focusing down left and down the right. Now you would say focus through the middle to get those half space attacks, but actually focusing down the flanks worked better. And what would happen a lot as well is working the ball down the flanks, which then get the ball to the wingers, allows those underlapping runs. Makes sense now, don't it? If you can get the ball out to those wider areas, to the wingers, then you can really attack those half space by those players making the underlapping runs, which could be the right side of central midfielder, the right inverted wing back, or on the left hand side the inverted wing back, and the left side the central midfielder. And we are also playing out from the back, which is what Tottenham, of course, like to do. Passing directness, we are playing shorter, but we are with a higher tempo, and that is not just for Football Manager's sake. We know that gets better results in Football Manager, but looking at the passing volume and pace in the top 5 leagues as of the 19th of January, so actually pretty recent, we can see Tottenham here. They play around or just under 550 passes per game, but their speed it is fairly high. So as you can see here in the top right, these are teams that are playing short passes or are able to get a lot of passes, but also playing at a higher tempo. And then you can see down here with the lower tempo, a lot of passes, but the lower tempo is when you start to see teams like Arsenal and Manchester City. Lastly, in the final third, low crosses, but also hit early crosses, which is something that I don't really see in many Ange recreations, and it is something that we have seen recently in Ange's tactics, where the just striker. I mentioned it earlier with the striker initially being offside, and when they work the ball out wide, the winger can then send in an early cross, and that catches the defenders off guard as the attacker can get the ball or get to the ball before a defender. Of course, given the attacker is smart enough to watch the offside line. In transition, when we do lose the ball, we are going to counter press. We are hoping we can kind of lose the ball mostly in the middle areas if we can, because then we've got a lot of numbers and a lot of bodies to try and stop the counter attack. If we do lose the ball in those sort of wider areas, we can kind of be open for counter attacks, especially if the inverted wing backs have moved into the middle. But when possession has been won, we are going to hit the opposition on deadly counter attacks, and when the goalkeeper has the ball, just distribute the ball to the central defenders and do so by taking short kicks. Lastly, out of possession, we are going to be high pressing, a high line of engagement with a higher defensive line, and the trigger press much more often, just so we can be proactive. And I will show you the PPDA stats as well. Sometimes just setting this all the way up and to the max doesn't actually mean that you are now going to become a very good pressing side. It still matters about the system and your style of play. We aren't going to be preventing that short goalkeeper distribution actually, because I don't want the opposition to kick the ball long. We want high turnovers. We want to win the ball out. So we want to win the ball high, so we aren't going to prevent the short goalkeeper distribution. Actually, we're going to sort of trap them, allow them to try and play out and think they can play out, but they can't, because we're just going to press high aggressively and win the ball back, get stuck in and step up as well to make sure we have no space in between our lines and stay compact. Of course, the opposition can kick the ball over your defense line, which annoyingly Aston Villa did a lot to me on Football Manager, but you kind of weigh out the pros and the cons of it. So now moving over to the player roles, sweeper, goalkeeper, in goal, you can use one on support or attack. This is actually down to you. I didn't really or necessarily see any difference. The left back, inverted wing back on attack, he's going to be passing it shorter and tackling harder. And then on the right hand side, we have the inverted wing back on support, passing it short and tackling harder. Udogie will be mainly focusing on trying to make those underlapping runs and get through, whereas Pedro Porro will be more involved in the build up. He will still get further forward as the team moves forward, of course, but Udogie will be doing it with more urgency. At the back, we do have two ball playing defenders. Now, if you want to be incredibly savvy about this with Van der Ven, is that his name? You could do trigger press less often or just use cover so he can sweep up and cover with his pace, and then Romero being that aggressive defender as he is, you can put tackle harder or you can put stopper. Again, this is down to you, but I just found it a nice balance, just leaving both on defend. Now moving forward into Basuma, we have a defensive midfielder on support, passing it shorter, taking a few risks, dribbling more and tackling harder. Now what I did try first or initially is a register, someone that can roam around and actually help us progress the ball as well, with some carrying more naturally than a defensive midfielder on support would, but his position, starting position and stuff like that, it just wasn't to my liking. I like to have that rest defense, as Tottenham like to have that rest defense. You would rarely see Basuma attacking inside the box in a settled attack, just leaving the two central defenders and no cover in front of him. So defensive midfielder on support is what I went with. And then on the right hand side, we've got a box-to-box midfielder taking fewer risks and tackling harder. The central midfielder on attack is also taking fewer risks, moving into the channels and roaming from position. Taking fewer risks helped us rack up better pass completion, because for some reason without it, our pass completion in midfield was horrible. So the central midfielder on attack, James Maddison, he's going to be roaming from his position as well, trying to collect the ball, again trying to use a playmaker instead of a central midfielder so we can get that Maddison dropping deep, collecting the ball. Again, it just wasn't helping with the balance, because when we did move forward and try and create that five-man attack, Maddison sometimes just wasn't there. And it also didn't help with our underlapping runs as well. So I felt central midfielder, again, when it comes to attack and play, just looked more like an Ange replication in game. Now, lastly, going to the attack, the winger on the left hand side, he's going to be passing it shorter, cutting inside with the ball when he does get the ball, and he gets further forward. Of course, staying wider is very, very key, as that stretches the opposition's defense. On the right hand side, we have an inverted winger on attack, the Kulu role. Now again, I could use two wingers, but we just won't get anybody holding up the ball at all. And again, using two wingers as well just means naturally they are going to be looking to beat their man on the outside. Now they can cut inside with the ball still, but when it's a 1v1 looking to beat their player, a winger on this game naturally will look to beat him on the outside, drive towards the byline, and that a lot of the times left the man isolated. Postecoglou, of course, will be still dribbling, but looking to cut more inside as well. And we have stay wider. Now, a lot of people will be like, well, you need the width. You need the width. The width is very important. If you do watch the clips that I've been showing you, Postecoglou is always holding the width. So we don't lose that width on the right-hand side. The winger, okay, might be a bit more natural at holding the width, but the right winger will still do it. It doesn't matter. He will still do it. Lastly, up top, we have the advance forward, no added instructions. Now, as always, I don't get the tactic right or spot on straight away. There's always a few tests, but you will get a few variations. We have the main one. We have one when you are away to good teams. Very important. Use all eyes. Again, this is why you just can't do a simulation test here. You need to use opposition instructions when you are playing against the big teams. Never type mark on the opposition's attackers. So what that means, as you can see here against Man United, the striker and the two wingers never type mark. That is just very, very dangerous, especially against a Marcus Rashford. We have one when we are looking to hold the result. So sometimes when you're 1-0 or 2-0 up, 50, 60 minutes, getting a bit all squeaky bum time, then I do change to hold the result. We have one with the register and winger combo. So if you do want to try out Basuma as a register, here we are, register and two wingers as well. The results with that wasn't as good as the main one that I broke down. And we also have one as well. If your players are getting tired, you can just step off a little bit, and we are less aggressive off the ball. As you can see, the intensity has dropped as well. And then lastly, I created more of just a Football Manager friendly, more of an OP tactic where we did the holiday test with. This is what I did the holiday test with, and now we are going to be looking at those results. So now I must stress to you as well, when you are playing this game, you have to micromanage. Sometimes you cannot just get a tactic, download it and plug it in. What I am doing with these tactic tests is making sure all the players are happy. So from day one, I offered Son, Richarlison, Romero, all these players new contracts because they were wanted as well. But I made sure they were having new contracts so I don't get those complaints later on down in the season. In pre-season, I used the tactic from day one throughout the whole pre-season, making sure the players are getting familiar with the tactic, because again, tactical familiarity is very important to getting good results. And a new thing that I did try as well is using my assistant manager to do touchline shouts. This isn't something that I've tried before. I did start with this Tottenham test, and to be fair, I sort of like it. So in the Premier League, we did manage to win the league with Tottenham Hotspur with 98 points. This isn't the only time we actually won the league. The holiday test won the league as well. Son coming with the second top goal scorer and second with the highest average rating. Postecoglou and Maddison are the second and third top assists in the league. So I kind of got that right when it comes to who were the main creators for Tottenham Hotspur, Postecoglou and Maddison. Vicario was 17 clean sheets, just one behind, Onana and Edison. So Tottenham did manage to score the most goals. Looking down here as well, opposition passes per defensive action. Liverpool, as you would expect, top that list, and then is Tottenham. So our pressing was highly effective. Average defensive line high as well. You can see that we are holding our high defensive line. But when it comes to most possession, we do drop down to 7th. I believe Tottenham, what did I say earlier, 4th. We are 7th in Football Manager. But again, there's not much you can do when you do have your tempo set to high. We also won the Carabao Cup. So we won the double, beating Liverpool in the final. And yeah, here we are. Bentancur, the goal scorer in the 37th minute. Vicario, the man of the match. But we did create 3 clear-cut chances. So I do believe we were the better team. We created 3 clear-cut chances, but XG just 0.70. Weird. So in the holiday test, you can see again, we played 38, winning 28, drawing only 2 games, but losing 8. 7 of those 8 games were away from home. So something is happening away from home that we need to tweak. Lastly, I did select what Football Manager was predicting as a mid-table team in the game, which was Ipswich, and we won the championship, winning 29 of the 46 games, drawing 11 and losing 6. And just again, look at the away games. The away games here is an issue, especially on holiday, because it's just your assistant manager. You cannot micromanage anything. So I actually believe I could have possibly got better results here at Ipswich just playing the game. Now, lastly, because I like to be extra, I do like to be extra, I have trainer schedules, again, something that I use when playing the games in the main Tottenham Hotspur test. Again, all part of micromanagement and help you get a better results rather than allowing your assistant to do physical training in the middle of a season. So we do have one with the training schedules with match day on Saturday and one with match day on a Wednesday and Saturday. Everything will be in the download folder, and thank you guys for watching today's video. Shout out to my Patreon users once again. If you can afford to, make sure you go and check out the Patreon site. That will be hugely appreciated. Thank you for this recommendation. Thank you for the lovely comments on the last video as well. I'll see you guys soon. Stay safe. God bless. Peace out.